Welcome to Navigating Financial Freedom. Our guest today is Johnny Lynum. He is a seasoned real estate investor, active duty Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, author, coach, philanthropist, and was born in Detroit, Michigan and raised in Grove Hill, Alabama. Johnny is the founder of Operation Invest and REI Genius, where he assists veterans and busy professionals in creating passive income through real estate investing. For more than 17 years, Johnny has been directly involved with buying and selling both single and multifamily properties, and currently owns about 120 units valued at over $14 million. Johnny's primary specialties include project management, success coaching, marketing, capital raising, buy and hold investing, fix and flipping, and motivational speaking. He is extremely passionate about financial literacy and empowering the underserved. Johnny loves spending time with his precious family. He likes reading motivational, leadership, and mindset books, and he is the author of the renowned book, Millionaire Real Estate Success Strategies, What They Forgot to Teach You in School. Welcome to the show, Johnny.
Thanks, Jeff. My pleasure being here.
All right, great. Well, it's an honor having you here, and love to learn a lot more from you about your financial endeavors, investing in real estate. And we'll just start off with a few questions. Hopefully our listeners can gather some great insights. So Johnny, if you had to, what advice would you give military folks as far as thinking about starting to invest in real estate?
I get that question a lot, being active duty. And, for me, I started using my VA loan. And so the biggest piece of advice that I would share with them is buy your property as soon as possible, whether it's your first assignment, if not no later than your second assignment for those that's starting off. One of the great benefits we have as veterans and active duty members is our VA loan entitlement. And so you literally can go buy a 1, 2, 3, up to a 4 unit property with your VA loan benefit, 100% finance and no money out of pocket. And, with the 4 unit, you become an instant landlord, have 3 individual households paying you each month. And so one of the things that, with building wealth, that we know that you got to have time and being able to get into the asset. And so being able to explain that to young airmen or young soldiers is something that is really a missed opportunity for a lot that don't come from a background or household where you're kind of leaning forward, you're having conversations about wealth, you understand real estate investing and things of that nature that can set you up for a long process, a long journey of building wealth. So I would say get out there, buy that first property as soon as possible. And if you can, look at buying multiple units with your VA loan.
So explain that to me as far as, so let's say they bought a fourplex with a VA loan and they were living in one side. Now, if they were, assigned to had a new assignment and they had to leave, would they have to refinance that into a conventional loan in order to buy a new home at the new location?
Oh, great question. Great question. So the requirement with the VA is that you live in the residence for at least 1 year. But even if you get orders to PCS and relocate to another area, that you don't have to, that's not a violation or anything. You can do that. And so the goal is to have you live there at least 1 year. But if something happens and the job moves you to somewhere else, then no, you don't have to leave it. You can become a 100% rental property and have all 4 units leased out and produce an income.
What an opportunity, huh? So could you explain a little more about the VA loan process and how they can use that to possibly buy multiple units as far as multiple fourplexes or multiple single family homes?
For sure. And that was the thing that brought me into real estate. With my first property that I bought was one side of a duplex. It was a two bedroom, 2 bath, right at 1,000 square foot in Warner Robins, Georgia. And, it was under $75,000. And so I literally got a check for over $300 at closing just because the seller, he actually paid for all the closing costs. And so I owned this asset. I was paying a little bit over $300 less than what I was paying for my apartment that I had originally. And it got my gears to turning. And, from there, it was like, okay, there's something to this real estate thing. And you hear, the stories of, and this was 2006, with Donald Trump, $1 billion real estate investors and Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. and just reading the stories of how so many people have built wealth over the years with real estate. And it got me thinking going through, is like, how can I do this again? And so the next two duty stations, I actually bought foreclosures, bank foreclosures, using my VA loan. And so I was able to get into three properties, using my VA loan without refinancing or selling the one previous that came in and became rental properties for me. And so that started my wealth building journey in real estate. And so most banks can do a VA loan. The only thing that's unique about it is that it's backed by the Veteran Affairs, by the government. And so they do the same type of underwriting. And now the only thing that kind of makes it VA is that the government is backed by the government. So in case you default, then the government will cover a portion of that loan. And so for a lender, it's low risk. And we see traditionally that VA interest rates are a little bit lower just because the risk profile for those loans are less than, say, conventional or FHA loan products.
What an opportunity. I mean, it's not the same VA loan process of what it was 20 years ago. It was more difficult back then than I remember. So is there a limit on how many VA loans a serviceman may be able to have? I mean, they transfer around to different posts often.
Right. And so right now, so there's no purchase limit. Back when I initially started buying, there was a entitlement limit. And so luckily my first property was under 75,000. The next one was 208,000. And then when we got to that third property, we had about $300,000 of entitlement left just because we had went to the DC area and the cost of living is higher, that there was a larger allotment for housing in this area. And I was able to find a $280,000 condo, use my VA loan again. So there's opportunities to go in and actually get multiple properties as you move around in different duty stations, leveraging the VA loan. But after that, I had to, in the future, my current residence in 2020, we found another foreclosure in the DC market, and we had to refinance one of those previous VA loans in order to put it into a conventional product for us to have that entitlement back where we could reuse it again for this current purchase. So after you tap out, you may look at having to refinance to get out of the VA loan and reinstate your entitlement in the future. But it kind of just depends on your strategy and where you are with how you've allocated in the purchase price and in what market that you ended up buying in.
Right. So if you refinance like that, Johnny, so does that bring into the fact now you may have PMI or loan to value ratios that you have to qualify for to go to a conventional loan if you had to do that?
Correct. So you do have to make be able to pass the qualifications for that loan product. Some are a little bit flexible, probably last year or so with the changes in the economy that you've seen some of those products change. But during the 2020 timeframe, that especially because I had bought so far long ago, 7-8 years, that we had built up quite a bit of equity. So being able to do a 80% cash out refinance into a conventional product was no problem. And so you definitely want to look at the equity position and how that would allow you to refinance and go into a different product.
Yeah, but what a great opportunity for servicemen and women. I mean, to be able to use the VA loan to build wealth. I mean, that's what keeps most families out of buying a home nowadays. A $400,000 home, and to have to come up with 20% down, that's, you got to have $100,000 down payment. And for families today to save that kind of money, it's almost impossible. The only way you can do that is to build that wealth with real estate, starting out low and then selling and buying. I know one gentleman gave me a tip several years ago. He says, the true easiest way to build wealth and to make yourself a millionaire is to always, when you buy a house, never sell it. Buy another one, then buy another one. Always keep that property working for you and compounding. So that sounds like a great opportunity for servicemen and women. So as far as for your investing style, Johnny, do you prefer to buy and hold the properties, or do you like fixing and flipping like you see on the TV, or do you just mostly invest in multifamily units?
No, that's a great question. I get that one a lot, and it's evolved over time. So I would say yes to all of those. We started with buy and hold. I remember our first property we got in Birmingham. That was a true no kidding investment property that we bought for $25,000. The rent was $750. I got a line of credit from Wells Fargo, and we bought it pretty sight unseen. We had a family in the area, had a contractor that brought the opportunity to us, and we pulled the trigger on it. And after doing that twice, that was like, hey, we had our first child, and we made the decision that my wife was going to stay at home with him and forego getting back into the when we had PCS and moved, forego getting back into the workforce. And so with that, it was just hitting kind of the my stride in the service. Had been in for about 8 years, and had some really good experience. And it was like, hey, we can do the same thing on HGTV. I manage contractors for software development for work. I'm like, fixing a house is just a different set of contractors with a different skill set. And so we took the leap of faith, did our first fix and flip in Alexandria, Virginia, learned a heck of a lot. And I share that story that, my lender made more money in the deal than we did. He made 23,000. We made around 15,000, but the experience was priceless. And after that, we started fixing and flipping in Birmingham, Alabama, doing that virtually. And it came up in 2020 that I had tore my ACL. We were displaced for 6 months after Hurricane Michael there in the Panama City, Florida area. And we had kind of took our, experience to another level, because overnight with Hurricane Michael, you had thousands of dilapidated houses. And so we had built up that skill set over the years, doing one flip at a time and eventually doing two or three simultaneously. And, going into 2019, we started doing 10 to 12 houses each year, just revitalizing that community. And, I went to a conference that changed my life in Orlando, October 2019. And it was my first exposure to multifamily. I never realized how close I was to being able to buy my own apartment. And about 45 days later, we found the great opportunity for an 18 unit that was on the market, had been out there for over 90 days, and it had some hurricane damage. And we took the leap of faith, put the offer in, took what I had learned, the connections, made a couple of phone calls that I had met at that conference to get wisdom, get information on how to put the deal together and structure it. And, we were able to get that deal done right when COVID was kicking off, spring of 2020. And we really haven't looked back. And so now our strategy has evolved that we just said we fix and flip all the single families because we still have that business, and we take that profit and buy small apartments, 40 units and below, to hold long-term for passive income.
Right. Well, I mean, it's rentals. I mean, they go up. I mean, the economy may go up and down, but you're always going to have clientele, right? So, just everyone, it's always going to stay full. So you don't have to worry about vacancies too much. But like you just stated, though, we've got storms, we've got economy, we've got interest rates. I mean, things changing all the time in the real estate environment. What keeps you motivated in the face of all these changes?
I think for me, it goes back to why I started real estate. And, and just my upbringing, my parents, my dad was a pastor, and he owned his own business, appliance and television repair company. And my mom was a phlebotomist and, hourly worker, worked in the hospital, drawing blood and working multiple jobs, and just seeing the struggle and the challenges that they faced in my youth growing up. And just those humble beginnings that, being able to make sure my kids don't have to face those type of situations, and being able to kind of take the legacy to the next level, if you will, because there's a lot of sacrifices they made for me to be able to go to college, to get educated, and to join the service. And so now for me that, with all those things that's going that we don't control, that's happening in the backdrop, it's like, okay, take the information that we have today. What's the best decision that we can make with what we got, and move out on it. And, and so just knowing that, having that confidence in, the experience over the years, being a leader in the U.S. Air Force and an officer, and now taking all that together to now, moving out and being able to make wise decisions, and being able to manage our risk. Because at the end of the day, we're managing risk with all the projects that we do, with every asset that we buy, that we're managing our risk and be trying to build that portfolio in a way where we're diversified, we're not over leveraged, and we're not overexposed to anything that could hurt us or become catastrophic. And so we just continue to evolve because things change, and you adjust your strategy and you keep moving forward.
That's a great way to look at it. I mean, everything environment's going to always change. So you just have to be able to roll with it. And then, I mean, interest rates go up. You hear people panic. Well, it's really irrelevant when it's in investment properties because the prices are fluctuating based on cost, right? So,
Yep.
you mentioned earlier when in our discussion before we started the interview, I mean, that you teach financial literacy and to underserved communities. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, and that's a passion. It kind of goes back to me growing up in rural Alabama, Grove Hill, three traffic lights, and just those humble beginnings. And for me, it was truly humbling when I got to my first duty station there in Warner Robins, Georgia. I had to get a family member to sign on my lease for my apartment just because my credit was screwed up. I wasn't paying when I was coming out of college, wasn't paying my bills on time, and it was just a lack of literacy in understanding credit. Didn't really know a lot about the stock market. Didn't know anything about real estate in general. And so for me, and in my book that I wrote, Millionaire Real Estate Success Strategies, what they forgot to teach you in school, it was like I had a lot of book sense, I had an engineering degree, but when it came to financial literacy, I still had a ways to go. And I see that with so many individuals out there, and we start looking at the data with the bottom 50% of the 330 some odd million Americans, that the bottom 50% of Americans only own 1% of wealth in the United States. And like having that understanding and giving the information to people where they can make a conscious decision if they want to pursue wealth, if they want to learn to become more engaged with investing, and really just sharing that has become a passion of mine. And we do that multiple ways with getting out when I can, with speaking, even though I'm still active duty Air Force, at least for the next 15 months or so, doing virtual webinars, promoting my book and sharing that with other individuals. And, and just having conversations like we're having right now and just letting people know that, there's a different way that you can change your life through investing. And that's how it starts.
Well, that's great. You just mentioned your book that you had written, the Millionaire Real Estate Success Strategies. Can you share with us what would be the key takeaways from that book that someone could gather?
Best takeaway that I would say would be chapter 4, take action. That I was blessed to interview over 30 successful individuals, the majority of them real estate investors. And the best one that stood out to me was Dave Seymour. For a lot of people, remember him from A&E's flipping Boston, where he was a house flipper in Boston, and it's just him being an immigrant from Britain, moving to the U.S. And just his story really struck out, of one of being able to overcome adversity, addiction, and service, that he got presented opportunities and he didn't drop the ball, and he took action, and he made the decision to change his life, because up until everything to that point that he made that decision, that his life was going the wrong direction. But he took it upon himself to make that decision, make that the commitment to himself and to his family, to invest in real estate, to start learning that process, and opportunities that got presented to him changed his life. And so if I can tell anybody anything, it's take action on real estate or whatever it is that you want to do, that you're passionate about, that you're serious about. And if it's worth it, then you should move out on it today, because tomorrow's not promised for any of us.
That's so true. So, I mean, we have your book. I mean, I'm sure it's got some great insights in there. And what other resources would you recommend service members or anyone else to a source to get some insight on real estate investing?
There's a lot out there. Like, and I tell people, it's like you've got to get the information. And so it could come from multiple places, from podcasts, from books, seminars, workshops that you can go to. But really hone in, look at your situation. It always comes down to two things when it comes down to resources: your time and the money that you have at your disposal, capital. And so now, looking at those, what is the best strategy for you? Is it wholesaling? Is it Airbnb? Is it multifamily? Maybe it's note investing. Maybe it's being a private investor in an equity fund, or maybe it's fix and flipping. But it really comes down like, okay, your risk tolerance, how much money, capital do you have at your disposal? How much time do you have? And really, so figuring out, once you get that strategy, it's like, okay, now learn everything that you can about that strategy. Get in rooms of other successful people who have implemented that strategy, that's world class at it, where now you can, as I call it, the cheat code. Now you can accelerate your progress in that area by being able to leverage someone else's experience, where you can collapse your time frame to become successful in that area. And so if anything, like find a mentor, find somebody at your local real estate investor association, meet up in your city, and just find like-minded people that's already doing what you want to do. And you won't be too far behind them if you continue to make forward and show up consistently. Because I think consistency with anything, when you start talking about investing in education, is going to be what separates those that find success and those who don't.
I mean, just the way we met, LinkedIn. I mean, it's a great
Yeah.
resource for people wanting to connect and over a certain topic, you know. So that's great. Um, we spoke earlier. I mean, you're active duty, an officer, a family man, entrepreneur, uh, project manager, everything else. So how are you balancing that with your family? I mean, and do you get your family involved, your kids involved in the projects, things of that nature?
No, I get that one a lot. That and it's a really good question, and it really comes down to block scheduling my time, and a lot of times our schedule doesn't always reflect what's important to us. And for me, my schedule that it has to have everything on there, from the coaching business, my running my investment company, the time with my family, whether it's soccer practice, it's Thursday night, Netflix and chill with the wife, where we have our quiet time. It's putting date nights on the calendar twice a month. Time for just recreation with the kids. And so having all that on the schedule and making sure that the priorities that I've set in my life, that my schedule reflects it. And so for me, it's a matter of having that, and then a team. Like, the thing is that I'm always on camera and having the conversations, but it's a team behind me. It's a phenomenal team behind me, and they're not always in America. I have a couple VAs that are in the Philippines, one is in Pakistan, and a couple team members here in the U.S. that help me with everything from social media. My director of operations is in the Philippines that runs my coaching business and helps with the day-to-day logistics. We're making sure that our clients are number one with everything that we do. And then as well as the investment company, my property managers who are boots on the ground, my contractor teams, there in Alabama, and then also in Panama City, Florida, and then my acquisition manager there in Panama City, who runs all that. Because I'm in the DC market, and so I'm 10, 12 hours away from Alabama and even further from Florida, but I have the right people on the ground to represent me and go through and leverage their expertise in order to make sure that myself and the company is successful. And so I would say it's definitely adhering to a strict schedule with setting time to meet with new clients, to, get on podcasts, but then also, having a set time that, that's non-negotiable with being there for the family when they need me. A great example is how soccer season, I cleared my Mondays and Wednesdays. Like nothing in the evening was between 4:30 and 7 o'clock. Nothing happens in the business that time because I made a commitment. I was going to be at every soccer practice unless I had to travel for the Air Force and they sent me somewhere TDY. And so it's just things like that where you make what's number one, and just stick to it.
Awesome. So every professional, anyone in the top of their field, they focus on when they're dealing in their realm of expertise, they focus on mindset and psychology. So when you're negotiating these real estate transactions, do you have a certain mindset or psychology or a zone that you find you have to get yourself into in order to push through some of these transactions?
I think the mindset is extremely important. Tony Robbins says that, when it comes to success, that it's 80% psychology and only 20% skill set. And for me, it's having the mindset that I'm already successful and going into these transactions, because a lot of times we beat ourselves up as entrepreneurs because we're driven. We're always looking at the next goal ahead, the next milestone we're trying to reach. And a lot of times it can give us anxiety. We can get down on ourselves thinking, hey, that, I want to have 1,000 units, and I only got 100. Like, well, last year you only had 10. So looking back at it and being able to look back where we were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that now I've learned to measure success by what I've been able to overcome me personally and not looking at other goals in the future. And so going into negotiations that, it's always going in with adding value, understanding what the problem or challenge is, or what's the story, as we like to say, with the property and the owner, and going in, listening with both of our ears And talking, I tell people you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. It's like understanding how can you add value to their situation and create a win-win. And at the end of the day, that it works out really well for both people. And I think that's the thing. Like we've done well over 50 transactions in real estate, and I've never bought a property that the seller didn't want to sell, or they were angry, or there was this perception that we got over them. And so, and I think that's the thing. We're going in with negotiation. It's business, but at the same time, it's a people's business. And being able, the more you can relate with someone and be able and understand their problems and challenges and provide solutions, that you're going to be successful.
Excellent. So, depending on what news source or social media outlet you may follow, the real estate market is either the sky's falling or the sky's the limit. So you don't ever know, but you're in the business. So you see kind of the trends and things that are happening. So where do you see things heading over the next few years with real estate?
Oh man, that's a great question. I wish I knew the exact answer. I'd be even wealthier man with that one. But I think right now, I think real estate is going to be resilient right now, especially single family. Just it's a simple supply and demand situation. And I encourage your listeners, like, real estate is local. Like, we can talk about real estate being up 5% year over year, most recent as April 2024. But it's local, because in the Florida market, we got some areas where insurance costs have doubled, tripled, interest rates are high, and the market is completely different than, say, another market in Iowa, where there's still a lot of inbound population growth. And so it's really local. But I think in the single family space, there's going to be that continued turn where you're going to see lack of inventory still show up. And on the multifamily side, I think you're seeing in larger markets where there's been a lot of new construction, that as more and more of these units come online, that you're going to see rents maybe pull back a little bit as those units are absorbed in the market. But one of the things that we see in the multifamily space, that a lot of new construction stopped the last 12 to 18 months. And so once all these units are absorbed over the next year or two, that we're going to see the same thing, where we're going to have a shortage of supply. And so I think real estate is going to remain to be resilient. I think the most recent Gallup poll that I saw from their survey is that real estate over the last 14 years has been the number one long-term investment from those that they've surveyed, followed by stocks and bonds. And so I think that's the thing, is that you really got to look at the dynamics of the interest rates. That's just one variable in the equation. And, especially as you're gearing up for retirement and thinking about diversification, that when you start looking at, say, for instance, a $500,000 retirement account, and if you're adhering to the 4% rule, you're able to pull out roughly around $2,000 a month. And if you're in the 20% effective rate, you're going to have to pay about $400 a little bit over $400 in taxes. But now you're going to be looking at around a little bit over $1,300 a month in income. And the contrast to that, if you're able to pick up an apartment building, and my first apartment building was an 18 unit we picked up for a little bit over $1 million. It was $1,050,000. We picked up that property and we had to put a down payment of $210,000. And so right now that asset, it pays out a little bit over $5,000 a month. And so when you look at the comparison, you would need almost $1.5 million in a retirement account to take out 4% to equate to that same position that you have. Not to count, the first year with bonus depreciation, you're able to write off $186,000 that first year. In 2 years, we refinanced that property and pulled out $436,000 tax-free. And now it's going up more, and it's about $800,000 of equity left in that property. And so that's the power of real estate, that you're getting the cash flow, you're getting the appreciation, you're getting the debt paid down by residents, and you're getting the tax benefits. And now it's just, that's the thing that I just try to share with any and everybody. It's like you got to become educated and become an astute investor and become serious about it, because there's little things that you can do where you can buy your own 18-unit apartment building that can set you up for the rest of your life for retirement. And because that's a lot to save up $1.5 million in a retirement account. That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of time that you've had to trade working to get that company matched, to make those contributions each year to be able to get to that level. And there's a faster way that you can do it with real estate.
So let's discuss that if you don't mind. Let's say we have
Mhm.
an enlisted man that's maybe making 50,000 a year, and he hears finance an apartment building for $1 million. He's automatically, well, I can't afford that. How could I qualify for that? So can you kind of explain the difference in how they look at the credit versus the payback versus the rental income and versus as if you were buying it and lived in it yourself?
Yep, no, that's a great question. And I have a client right now that's in the Knoxville, excuse me, Chattanooga market, Jahil, that's buying. He's actually closing early June. He would have closed on a 4 unit apartment that he's buying right now with his VA loan. He's a prior service member. He's in IT, and the property appraised at value, and it was a little bit north of $1 million. And he was able to go through, and he's only going to be out of pocket around 10K. And so it's doable. And the thing is that one, yes, you have to have the income for both you and your spouse, but they look at the rents. So right now, his rents that he's able to charge are around $2,000 per unit. He's going to live in one of the units, but the market effective rent in that area is around 2,300. So as those leases turn over, that he'll be able to raise rent. And so now essentially those 3 units at $2,300 a month rent are well over his mortgage payment and his taxes and insurance payment that he has to make each month. And so you're able to go in and build wealth that way. And so it's a math problem. You got to look at your debt to income ratio. You want to have the highest credit score where you can get the best interest rate. But there's multiple ways to get there. And and that's on the residential side. As you get into larger apartments, you can bring in private investors. You can look at bringing in additional debt in a second position behind the first mortgage to bring in to support your down payment. And so you have a lot of different creative ways to get deals done in real estate where it doesn't all have to come down to you and how much capital you have or how much credit that you have as an individual. Because literally, with self-directed IRAs, that there's lenders out here that actually lend money to your self-directed IRA to buy a property where you can take $20,000, $30,000 out of your retirement account, purchase a property, and they'll lend you the other 70, 80%.
Awesome. Awesome. So you mentioned a lot of strategies there, but as a financial planner myself, I have to look at risk. Managing risk is my biggest uh, priority with my clients. So how do you manage the risk of these type of investments?
No, that's great because risk is at the forefront of everything that we do and understanding how we're exposed. And I think the biggest risk when you start talking about real estate is adjustable rates. And we saw what happened with adjustable rate mortgages in the '08 crisis, where I think you had almost the north of 50% of Americans had adjustable rate mortgages at one point in time. And it led us into the financial crisis. Fast forward to where we are now, that over 90% of Americans have fixed rate debt for 30 years. And so having that locked in payment for 30 years allows you to lower your risks. And I think that's one of the things we're seeing now in the office space and multifamily. For those that were aggressive and bought the last couple of years at high prices, they had a lot of times with commercial loans, you have adjustable rate mortgages with commercial debt. And so it allows a larger amount of risk. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of investors didn't take that risk into account with looking at the loan products, that the investments that they were getting into. And so I think when it comes down to risk with real estate, you want to try to lock in your debt for as long as possible, whereas that you can have that predictive payment, predictive cash flow. You also want to look at, the nature of the value add. For us, we love dilapidated properties where, mom and pop owners who've owned over years, they didn't keep up with repairs and maintenance. They may not have kept up with market rent, and that those two combined give us an opportunity to come in, renovate units, and bring them up to market rent. And so for us, it's like you want to make sure that you have the skill set and you're not getting out of, as we say, getting in front of your skis, where you have experience or someone on your team has experience with whatever it is that the asset class that you're buying, whether it's if it's foundation issues, black mold, swimming pool, if you're looking at single families, or just looking at just managing a project where you got to update 20 units over a year or 2 years, and just making sure that you have a knowledgeable contractor, a property manager that has managed that type of asset already, and a good team around you, where is that you don't have to know all this stuff. You need to know enough, but you need to have the right people with the knowledge and years of experience and wisdom on your team to help you navigate. And having the right team, it buys down that risk, and it just allows you to be able to sleep at night and be able to go in confidently in what it is that you're doing, and being able to share those opportunities with other investors and partners as well too.
Awesome. Well, Johnny, I know you've mentored numerous people in their beginning real estate investing. Can you share maybe some of the other success stories? Maybe what's your best success story that you've had with one of your mentees?
No, that's a great question. Of course, I mentioned Jahil, and with him closing on his 4 unit, which is a great. That was his first investment property and residence. But my client Reggie, who was a former cop in the Birmingham market, that back in the early 22 timeframe came into my program and got his first contract in less than 10 days coming into the program. I kind of helped walk him through it, did a fix and flip on that property, sold it to a hedge fund in less than 90 days. And which is a phenomenal story, made over $40,000 in less than 90 days. And so, but with that, he started reading my book in around May of that year. He said, "Hey man, I'm reading your book, and this works for apartments too." I'm like, "Yeah, the same. Hey, finance it, fix it up, renovate it, then finish with your exit strategy." I'm like, "Yeah, it's applicable." And so he started taking action, looking to apartments, and ran across a 40 unit in Montgomery, Alabama. And long story short, we put the project together. It was a owner that owned it for over 30 years. They had originally built it. It was a low income tax credit program, had came out the program. And so the rents were below market rent to the tune of about $325. And the owner was paying all the water, landscaping, pest control, and for trash. And so going in was like, okay, being able to raise those rents and reduce the expenses, that you're able to get close to a $2 million increase in the value over that 2-year period. And so that was one of the things we helped put the deal together, got it closed, and changed his life. Whereas that now you're able to get in without even having a lot of money out of your pocket, and you can own 27% of an apartment complex. And so, by and far, I think he's been the most successful with being able to get out there and get those opportunities. And so that's the thing. When I say take action, it's like that's the one thing that most people, they fail to do. They'll do one or two things. They'll send marketing out to owners one time and now say it doesn't work. But if you show up consistently, that it's going to work out. It's going to work out really well for you long term. So, yeah, shout out to Reggie.
Yeah, Reggie just went out and did it, right? So,
Yep.
yeah, excellent. So you let the cat out of the bag there. So you mentioned your programs. So I would like for you to tell our listeners about your programs, how you help educate people on investing and what you can offer.
Yeah, no, a couple of different lanes. I have my multifamily mastermind where I kind of go through as a consultant. I teach my finance, fix and finish process to most of my clients are veterans and busy professionals that are looking to be hands-on, but also have a lot of private investors that want to learn how to be an astute investor, make good decisions, minimize their risk. Here recently, I just launched, because one of the things that I found out is the access to resources is one of the largest limiting constraints, I would say, or limiting beliefs that most of my clients have. And so I just launched an 8-week cohort, and going through that cycle of teaching individuals how to scale properties, but also how to raise capital, how to partner correctly on deals. Because we see as the appreciation happens that prices have gone higher, but there's a great opportunity to partner and group funding, whether it's through large funds where you can buy larger buildings and invest property where you don't have to have all the expertise and you do it alone by yourself, and just you can partner capital and just teaching people the right way to raise capital and do deals. And so we packaged that up into an 8-week accelerator where at the end of 60 days that clients, they have a framework to be able to go through due diligence, buy bigger real estate deals, and to raise money in their sleep, as I like to say, because they have a system in place to put the capital together. And so that's something that we just came up with, the 8-week accelerator with the first cohort. And and later this year, I think the big one that I'm really looking forward to is launching Lynum Capital, our private equity fund, where investors can come in without having to do any work, without having to manage contractors, and partner with us on deals where they can get those tax depreciation benefits. They can get that passive income that we talked about with those projects without having to do all the work. And so, in being able to just partner in those deals with us and get exposure to broader diversification from being in real estate, but then being in different geographical areas where we're seeing increase in population, increase in job growth, and being diversified on multiple levels to allow them to build wealth faster.
Well, awesome. Well, Johnny, how can our listeners find you? What's your website address and what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. Yep. So JohnnyLynum.com, my first name, last name.com is a great place. I'm really active on LinkedIn. They can message me on LinkedIn as well too. Those are probably the two best areas. And then my email is johnny@johnnylynum.com.
Excellent. Excellent. So on your website, you've got all your programs in there and things of that nature?
Yep. There's information on there, and you can sign up and have a consultation call from the website. And I really, between myself and Coach Jessica, I really like to kind of have a sit down and make sure that it's a good fit for them as well, for us, for the community. So I love to have that one-on-one, and before anybody can enroll, to make sure that we're aligned and we're ready to go.
Excellent. I mean, what a wealth of information. I really enjoyed our interview today, and just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your insights with the audience.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and hey, I look forward to being able to work together in the future as well too.
Yeah, sounds great to me. As we conclude today's episode of Navigating Financial Freedom, we extend our sincere appreciation to Johnny Lynum for sharing his remarkable journey in navigating financial freedom. Thank you.
This concludes another episode of Navigating Freedom in Federal Retirement podcast. As federal employees, your retirement journey is unique, and we're here to guide you every step of the way. With host Jeff Gill and our lineup of experts, we aim to bring clarity to your path ahead. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a fellow federal employee. Remember to subscribe for continued insights. Until next time, here's to your informed and bright retirement future.